From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. We've got a packed show for all of y'all today. I mean, seriously packed, and I'm in fuego about the show because so many stories, so much to talk about, and we're going to get right to it. So thank you all for tuning in. Thursday, August 15th, 2024. Join me for a coffee cup cheers before we get the show going. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Double espresso to power through this as we start off with Iran suffering what is considered to be a major cyber attack, causing widespread outage and disruption across their entire financial systems and banking systems across all the country. Iran International, which is aligned with the Iranian opposition, said the scale and impact of the attack suggests it could be one of the largest cyber attacks on Iranian state infrastructure to date. The incident occurs as rising tensions continue to increase in the Middle East as Iran threatens to strike Israel. The incident also comes on the heels of reports suggesting Iranian hackers worked to influence and monitor the upcoming U.S. election, including a recent Microsoft study outlining a campaign involving the creation of fake news websites designed to appeal to both liberal and conservative voters. Again, they have an interest in keeping our country divided, keeping us from talking to each other. World's number one terrorist, or Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, addressed perceived threats, stating the exaggeration of our enemy's capabilities and then spread fear among our people by the U.S. brands and, of course, the Jews. The enemy's hand is not as strong as it is publicized. Yep, this is coming from I'm not going to repeat this guy's propaganda. He is an oppressor, the number one financier of terror across the world. All of the instability you see rising everywhere is at the behest of this individual in this country. So, all in all, this cyber attack on Iran has crippled ATMs in the country. Speaking to someone this morning, I was also told ATMs crippled, not working. Banks closed. They've got like printed notes saying like we're closed until further notice. Pumps at gas stations not accepting payments. If you don't have cash, it's not happening. Really significant disruption there on Iran's banking infrastructure. Now, some of this is the attribution, by the way, is still kind of muddy in the fact that there was an attack in Lebanon, very similar last week, that was attributed to a group of Israeli hackers. This one mimics that attack in a way, but no one's claimed responsibility for it. Iran isn't pointing the finger. Obviously, they're trying to save face in all of that because that's the Persian mentality. And you got to understand the mentality in order to understand that. So there's that. But for their end, Iran's not some innocent country that's being oppressed. Iran is an oppressor of their own people, of women in the country, but they're also trying to meddle in U.S. affairs and in significant fashion. So Microsoft confirmed some of the stuff that they're doing. Now, the Google Threat Analysis Group is expanding on the Microsoft report, saying they're seeing active attacks on President Biden, President Trump, and Vice President Kamala Harris, trying to either infiltrate personal email accounts of roughly a dozen people linked to the presidential candidates and leaders of this country. Google reports said that its threat researchers detected and disrupted a small but steady cadence of Iranian attackers using email credential phishing, a type of cyber attack. We all know what email phishing is. The report said Google observed the group gaining access to one high-profile political consultant's personal Gmail account. That's Roger Stone's account, on behest of the Trump campaign. That's what the Trump campaign released on Saturday of last week, saying they one of their accounts was hacked. It wasn't an account within the Trump campaign. It was the personal Gmail account of Roger Stone. And then through that, they tried to infiltrate others. And obviously, the security in place at the campaign was able to put a stop to it. The FBI is now investigating that. So the groups also has other cyber espionage activity across the Middle East, including the Israel-Hamas war there as well. Politico's also revealed it received leaked internal Trump campaign documents. Not sure whether those leaked documents were released by the Iranian cyber activity. The Washington Post and New York Times also received similar documents coming from unnamed sources, allegedly coming from these hacks. Neither Google nor Microsoft specified Iran's intentions in the US presidential race, but you can only imagine. And obviously, I said at the end of this month, in just a few short weeks, we're doing a whole episode before early voting starts on what's the position of President Trump on cyber and what's his record, and what's the position of Vice President Harris and the Biden Harris administration's record on cyber, and what are their campaign plans for the next 4 years on cybersecurity, on data privacy, on US privacy, and obviously on the threats emanating against the US from cyber from China, Russia, Iran, and their lackeys. DEF CON over the weekend. This story, by the way, is in Politico, and that should just tell you everything you need to know about the story. So, mind you, a lot of times when I do the show, I get stories from cybersecurity websites. This one specifically, and many stories in the last several weeks have come from non-traditional cybersecurity websites. This one coming from Politico, talking about the vulnerabilities found by some of the world's best white hat hackers on voting machines, and the fact that really, when the report is released and when these companies kind of get that, it'll be too little too late to make any fixes before the election, due to essentially laws and the scrutiny and the timeline and so forth. And obviously, go patch a machine on November 4th and watch whatever side doesn't come advantageous say, oh, they manipulated the machine to manipulate the vote. So you got to be careful about that. So election day security is under particular scrutiny. The election village at DEF CON, the voting village at DEF CON, was no stranger this year. In fact, it was really bumping, according to many people there. From Friday to Sunday, the voting village white hackers clustered around tables with all shapes and sizes of voting machines and equipment to verify voter identities or tabulate ballots, trying to get past firewalls or other security measures. Nearby secretaries of states and other election officials gave talks on misinformation and disinformation coming from the upcoming election. How about we focus on securing it since you went digital? How about that? Unlike most of the other events at the conference, though, the voting village was not on the main show floor. It was a decision organizer said was necessary in order to ensure security following years of hatred flung at the event online by those who see the attackers as undermining, the white hat hackers as undermining democracy. They're not undermining democracy. They're simply checking that. So all in all, they found a whole bunch of vulnerabilities, and we're not going to get into the whole history of this and kind of some of the stuff that politicians like to throw out there. The question is this the right move? And then how fast could they get these patched? And is there something critical? And if there's something critical, if it's something critical, could secretaries of state essentially revert to paper? What's the backup plan? And I think every secretary of state should have a backup plan in case there's something in these machines that makes them unusable or could create a lack of trust within the public using them come election day. There's that. The DNC is set to kick off next week in the great city of Chicago, Illinois. However, a Telegram-based bot service called Intel Fetch has been aggregating compromised credentials linked to DNC and Democratic Party websites. The data, which was identified and verified by ZeroFox researchers, include compromised credentials from the state of Washington and Idaho branches of the DNC, including other sensitive information like login for party members and their delegates at the convention. The exposed data includes email addresses, passwords, primarily from user registered on demconvention.com or democrats.org, and related to additional domains for the party. The report noted that although the breach did not appear to stem from a targeted attack, it does present a significant risk of unauthorized access and potential disruption, including infiltrating secure systems to allow malicious actors to access confidential information, disrupt party operation, jeopardizing the DNC convention, which needs to go off without a hitch. It is our national interest that our parties are able to do conventions, irregardless to how you vote, in a safe manner, in a good manner, and that should run smooth. It should run smooth. That's part of the democratic process, and that should be there. Okay, so the big story, though, if you're on Instagram, TikTok, anywhere, 2.9 billion records, every American social security number, every Canadian and every UK citizen, it's all online. We're done. We're doomed. That's it. There we go. It's over. Not all true. One, NPD has been the National Public Data, which kind of runs background checks, does a whole bunch of services for businesses, has not said whether or not they've been breached or not. The data, the attribution at the moment, and the reason for all the kind of noise is because someone posted something online with a sample data, and the sample data seems somewhat realistic. However, and I say this with a big however, as of yet, there's been no confirmation that this happened or how it happened. Okay. So 4 terabytes worth of data was allegedly exfiltrated. And again, this is all underground stuff. And this led to a class action lawsuit being filed against the National Public Data from Christopher Hoffman, who's the plaintiff, for its failure to properly secure and safeguard PII that it collected and maintained. Hoffman received a notification from his identity theft protection service provider notifying him that his PII was compromised as a direct result of the National Public Data breach. Now, this is where all the people have kind of blown up, going like, oh, wow, he got this there. And, this is really interesting. And I think this is going to be very, very interesting in terms of cyber. And I'll tell you why. One, if data being exposed and you're monitoring your personal data, like many of us are, right? And you use that without prior to getting notification, and the company hasn't done notification, it'd be a game changer, right? Like, I'm not defending National Public Data. I'm just saying they haven't said we've been breached. They haven't done any notification. So you have to be very mindful of that. Okay. Very, very mindful of that. All right. If you haven't subscribed to our Substack, please make sure to go do so right now. jamesazar.substack.com. You can find all the latest and greatest there. Now let's go ahead and continue with some major data breaches here. AutoCanada, a major Canadian car dealership, disclosed a cyber attack in May that resulted in some disruptions. The incident, which was discovered on August 11th, said it impacted internal IT systems. Also, they were also victims of the CDK ransomware attack. So all in all, not a good month and a year for them. The city of Columbus, Ohio, where Mayor Andrew Ginther is now confirming a breach and noted that the city has never received a ransom request. The city learned on Friday that most of the data was published to the dark web by the Riceta ransomware group and was corrupted or encrypted. The group initially claimed to have 6.5 terabytes worth of stolen data, including login information, emergency service files, and city camera access. But Ginther said the city's forensics indicates that the group had far less data than that its screenshot posted to the dark web were mostly was the most compelling assets it had, rather than just a preview. It said they accessed payroll, but never were able to extract that data, or there's no evidence of that either. Palo Alto, for their end, on Wednesday announced patches for vulnerabilities found in several of their products, including flaws that have been assigned a high severity rating. CVE 2024-5914 is a high severity command injection issue affecting the company's Cortex X-Source security orchestration, automation, and response product. Specifically, the flaw affects the product's common script stack and allows an unauthenticated attacker to execute arbitrary commands within the context of the integration container. Also, multiple high-profile open-source projects, including those from companies like Google, Microsoft, AWS, and Red Hat, are leaking GitHub authentication tokens through the GitHub action artifact in the CI/CD workflows. Attackers could steal those tokens, could gain unauthorized access to private repos, steal source code, or inject malicious code into projects, meaning create backdoors. Given the situation, GitHub users need to understand the risks, evaluate their exposure, and take measures to prevent that. The report from Unit 42 of Palo Alto highlights a combination of factors, including insecure default settings, user misconfigurations, and insufficient security checks that could lead to the leakage of GitHub tokens in what they called artifact attack. If a user mistakenly uploads the entire checkout directory as part of an artifact, the GitHub token inside the Git folder will now be exposed. Other sensitive information that might be contained in the folder includes API keys, cloud service access tokens, and various account credentials. Ultimately, attackers would seek to exploit specific race condition scenarios where the ephemeral GitHub tokens have to be extracted from logs and used before they expire. All in all, there's a bunch of mitigation here. This does impact a whole slew of parties like Firebase, Open Source Security, Claire, Active Directory systems, JSON schemas, TypeScript, repos, automation, and a whole bunch more. You can see all of this on our Substack as well. And for default settings for dangerous actions like actions and checkout should be adjusted so credentials do not persist. GitHub users are recommended to avoid including the entire directories in the uploaded artifacts. They should sanitize their logs and regularly review pipeline configuration. the RansomHub ransomware group has been observed using a new tool to terminate EDR software on compromised hosts, joining the likes of AU Kill and Terminator. The EDR killing utility has been dubbed EDR Kill Shifter by Sophos, which discovered a tool in connection with a failed ransomware attack in May of 2024. The tool is a loader executable, a delivery mechanism for a legitimate driver that's vulnerable to abuse, according to Andres Klopish. Depending on the threat actor's requirement, it can deliver a variety of different driver payloads. RansomHub, they're kind of a rebrand of the Night ransomware, resurfaced in February of this year. Microsoft revealed the crime syndicate known as Scattered Cyber as well. So a new tool there as well. And finally, as the economy continues to crunch, Cisco is planning to lay off 7% of its employees. This is their second round of job cuts this year. Earlier this year, they announced that they would cut 4,000 jobs. And this one might be in similar range as well. The networking company said in June that it would invest $1 billion in tech startups like Cohere, Mistral, and Scale to develop reliable AI products. Cisco's layoff comes just 2 weeks after Intel announced that it's cutting 15,000 jobs as it's trying to turn its business around and compete with NVIDIA in AMD as well. So all in all, we're seeing some stuff there as well. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back Monday, 9 a.m. Eastern here live with all the latest and greatest. Tomorrow, we'll likely air an episode about post-quantum cryptography and what to understand from the NIST stuff. I'm waiting to get an expert on the line today and hopefully be able to get y'all 10-15 minutes of really, really good, effective content that'll help you kind of sift through what's post-quantum cryptography, what's symmetric and asymmetric, and what does algebra really mean. So all of that hopefully will drop tomorrow. Again, trying to get this done today, hoping we can get it done today. And if it is, you'll see an announcement later this evening after we record it, and that'll air tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. And most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.